I ain't gotta maintain my image in person, cause I am the same guy. I ain't walking in your shoes, but I do stand beside him. Another story on the news, talking about how another cop shot him. What's the world really?
People and choice.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I said, I was talking to someone yesterday and I said, or we were talking about the difference between him and Trump had guts, which you need, and that's much better than corruption. That's by definition going to be better than corruption. And Trump did make decisions according to what he thought was best for the American people. Whether you agree with him or not, right. Saudi Arabian arms deal is good for the economy of America. Like, that's a fact. And so if you want to make the argument over those merits, you know, that's why he made that decision and a bunch of other decisions. But you need not only guts, but you need sophistication on top of that. And Trump definitely lacked that. He was a blunt instrument.
Comes from, though. I mean, look at when Trump was elected. How long did it, you know what, that first year, how many of his cabinet members were actually vetted by the Congress at that point? Not many. Mm-hmm. And that was like letting loose a pit bull in a neighborhood with no leash. And you're like, why is he tearing up the neighborhood? Because there's no one there to control the leash. That's what the cabinet does. It reins him in and it's like, hey, dude, check yourself a little bit. And he had nobody. And boy, he broke open that executive book, didn't he? He was just, and there was no one there to check him. And that was where the mistake came from. But
yeah, I think he didn't really have, like, the people that even the good people that got around him, I would not say were terribly great. Yeah, exactly. I would say that they were decent. Bill Barr was very intelligent, but he's about as swampy as it gets. But in general, I would say Trump was sort of the guy who was working with his own vision and by himself through pretty much 99.9% of what he did. Ivanka and Jared were involved in a lot of stuff. And like Trump would, have meetings and take people's opinions and gather information and all this stuff for sure. But what I saw time after time after time was that he had no interest in explaining his decision making beyond what he did. But when I would dive down deep into what he did, what the options were, and why he might have done what he did, I almost always agreed with the reasoning, and I could see the logic behind what he was doing, and the concrete decisions he was making. And so not everything and not every detail of it. And apparently I just learned from a congressman was talking about a story where he wanted to have a proper vote on the CARES Act, or the CARES Act, the original stimulus during the pandemic. He wanted a proper vote, so he was slowing down the process. And Trump called him, and he's like, "I will come at you like no one has ever come at anyone and ever." But like straight up, like, and he was going to tweet about him and say, and he called him a third-rate politician. Like that. That's what that meant. But that's the way Trump talks, and like that side of Trump is absolutely a real, behind closed doors, Trump can only be worse than Trump out in the open.
I think that Trump wanted to undo all the Bushes. I think he wanted to go all the way back to the late 80s and pick up from there and say, okay, America, here's where we're at. And just ignore the last 20 years before that or 17 years before that, and we can't do that, unfortunately, but I am so happy that he ran. I mean, I am a Trumper. Mm-hmm. I didn't lick his heels, believe it or not. I didn't kiss his boots. I didn't have to agree with everything he did. I don't agree with everything any president's ever done, and I never will. Let me just lay that out there. But I think underneath it, he had a big heart, and that's why for 30 years he's told Oprah and everybody else, I don't want to be president. If I do, it's because that I've seen it go down the tubes, and it has. It has. We've done it to ourselves. And someone who actually cares needs to be in. And I'm hoping DeSantis is that guy, because he does have a heart. He is family driven, and he's a wild card. And I ain't got a problem with that. That's why I voted for Trump. But we need proper guidance that isn't got their hands in the mud and muck, who hasn't been a lifelong politician. I'm sorry, that's our biggest problem. We hire people who went to college for this. You know, I'm sorry, where's Joe Dirt, the farmer, who says, you know what, it's my turn to step up to the mic? You know, who's had his ear to the ground his whole life and is like, hey, I'm bringing expertise to this thing. It's if you haven't been in the military schools, or if you didn't go to college with a political science major, and we don't even look at you no more. Why? Where did we get this mentality that we're going to hire the elite to control us instead of us controlling us? And the states have given up too much of their individual powers to Congress, and that's another problem. And I'm so happy that a lot of these states have taken it upon themselves to start, legalizing weed again, because, well, legalizing weed is awesome, and I don't even smoke.
Yeah, I do smoke, and I'm a big fan. Well, on that note,
I don't smoke. My wife does. Well, when we lived in Maine, at least it was legal there too, but it ain't legal here. And I think that's a problem, because it's great medicinally. It's great for your mindset. It's great for your demeanor. I wish tomorrow everyone in the world would just light up a joint. I'd have a great day at work. I promise you.
For sure. Yeah, I'm an advocate myself. I was an advocate for 2 years before I ever used the substance. I was straight edge through high school and in my early adulthood. I had a lot of addicts in my family, so I just knew I was not. And I was self-aware enough on top of that to know I was not ready to risk any of those substances. I knew I had some demons to fight, and when you are allowed to escape your demons a little too early, you're just never going to face them, or
Right.
when you do, it's going to be a friggin' train wreck.
I don't drink and I don't drug because my entire family has an addiction to one or the other. And I saw that as a child, and I will not let myself go down that route, and I never have done it. And I'm not going to ever stop the next man from doing it, but I know where my demons are genetically, and I'm just not going to go down that road, But I don't hate someone for doing it. Do your thing, boo-boo. That's my whole stance. You do you. That's the middle of the road. The centrist in me is you do you, and let me do me, and we'll both be happy.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. So I'd like to talk about your content a little bit.
Okay.
So you've been doing some raps, rhymes, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, so where did that start? Where did the inspiration come from? And just tell me a little bit about that side of you, that creative side.
Well, I grew up in the 80s, and with that became the birth of rap. R&B and rap just kind of emerged into the scene, and we all loved it, And in between classes, we had these hallways that had great acoustics, and we would just stand in a circle, and everybody would just pass a few lines, and I always wanted to be a rapper. I'm very good at it. I got a good, I got the speed tongue, but Vanilla Ice happened. And every white boy at that point became Vanilla Ice, no matter what. And we couldn't live it down because we were all the yo mama jokes generation. So our raps were all about tearing each other down, a lot like 8 Mile, but without so many people. But every time that somebody would step up, like, it's all right, Vanilla Ice. And you're like, damn it, I'll never live this down. And so I stopped. I wrote them down still. I wrote a lot of raps. I wrote a lot of comedic songs, parodies, if you will. And I still love to do that. I have pages put up in the attic, but so since the 80s, I've wanted to do this. And now I have a platform where I'm not so ashamed to put it out there. Because I am still an introvert. I am still, my heart's still a little pitter patter in doing this right here, but I'm putting them out there now, and some people like it, people don't like it, it is what it is, but it's me having fun and expressing myself, and it's fun, and I'm not going to stop now. So. Which one did you see in particular? Do you know?
I watched about 5 of them. I honestly couldn't tell you. I was more so interested because I've written some poetry myself, so I was curious. Have you written poetry? Is that something that you were involved in?
I wrote a lot of poetry before prison, but actually in prison. And and I got published two or three times. And I thought I was going to go down that road, but as I got older, I just kind of, I don't know, the emotional side of me got locked away more, and it's been harder to get back at it, which I guess is why I was able to get into the rap so much more, because they go hand in hand. I mean, no one did it better than Tupac, but poetry and rap are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And at least, before mumble rap came out. But,
yeah. It's interesting. The gap between Vanilla Ice and Eminem was a rough one for all white boys that like rap.
It was hard. Let me tell you, I was so happy when he came out. I got on the Eminem bandwagon as fast as I could. But the damage had been done for our image. Now, I got no hate for Vanilla Ice. That man took that little money he made and he turned it. Now he's a millionaire real estate developer in Miami, right? But he hurt us. When we had Beastie Boys holding us up, we had In Too Deep. They couldn't make it, but their stuff was slapping at the time. But here that comb over. He hurt us. He set us back 30 years, man.
Yeah. Eminem and Tom McDonald are like the only two that have really broken out. My podcast, I was lucky enough. I've had an artist who I'm a big fan of. Just came across a Instagram story that had a segment of one of his songs that was just spitting fire, called Third Eye. But his name's Jesse G, and I've had him on my podcast. And my intro and outro on all my stuff, and all of my stuff forever will be his music, because I vibe with it. But he's a white rapper, and so they're starting to branch out, and there's a lot of good guys out there now. Chris Webby is another one out there. Tom McDonald, obviously. Eminem is Eminem found a second win, man. He found a second life as an artist. He needed a little bit of friction. Whenever he did that sort of parking lot call out of Trump, I think it showed how dead his creative side was. And I think that he revived, like a phoenix, came at it. That was the ashes period. And then he came out of those ashes after the fact. But
after he got clean, there was a whole different side to him. And I think he had to get past that and get back the clarity of his mind that he had coming up into it, because no one's mind could work as good as his. I mean, he is and will forever will be the epitome of rap. I mean, he is what your mind thinks of when you want to put the pen to paper. And I'm not taking anything away from Biggie and Tupac. They died way too young in their career. But Eminem is rightfully so the rap god. And because he can't be touched, pen to paper, he can't be touched. And I'm not mad at him for it. I mean, I do still have my Vanilla Ice copy. Anytime I want to remember why my career in rap didn't last, I just put that on. So.
Right. All right. Well, I think that is a good place to put a pause on this whole thing. But first, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here. Truly, you said it was an honor and thanked me in the beginning, and then you mentioned how you modestly said I have a little bit of a following. Well, you have a very significant and impressive following, and rightly so. You're a talented guy. You're a funny guy. You're a thoughtful guy. And that's what matters to me the most. That last part. No, actually, no. Second most important. The most important. And it's what I've seen throughout this entire conversation, because I like to read people, and I think I've got a good sense of these things. You're authentic. There hasn't been a moment here where you're trying to hide behind anything that isn't you.
Yeah, I can't do that.
You're presenting yourself, obviously, and you don't want to look. You're not like, here's all the worst parts of me, but you're still you. And
I say that
and also, it's so interesting. You talk about like you have a rough past, and you were in jail and stuff. But you just have the most sweet demeanor, that just luscious, soothing Southern accent that just, makes you want to fall asleep on a warm Sunday afternoon with some tea in your hand. And so, and you're very successful. And I am just in the beginning of this whole social media thing. I was a car detailer, blue collar worker. I hated people. Not that I hate people. I love people, but I hate small talk. And so most conversation with most people I had no interest in. And around 2018, I started learning things about politics that I was by myself in observing. I found the smartest people I could find: the Jordan Petersons, Ben Shapiro's, Thomas Sowell's,
Good
even
names.
guys like the people I'm talking about now. But whoever I can find, countless nameless professors on inflation and all sorts of little tiny topics, but just learned and learned and learned, and got to a place where I had things of my own to say and contribute. And in order to become the person who could deliver solutions for the American people and really, end the two-party system, end the corruption, and just kind of solve these problems in a variety of ways, similar like what I said about the All Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter thing. That's
Right.
just a rhetorical example, but I'll give you a policy example in a minute. But I'm at the beginning of a 50-year march. I don't have much of a following, so you are doing me a favor by coming on here, much more so than I'm doing a favor by inviting you on to here. We have a 50-year march to help fix things, and it'll get a lot better, a lot more quickly than 50 years from now. But certain things like the debate between tax cuts and tax hikes, or debates about policy and concrete systems and things that we've been stuck in for forever. You
Right.
believe you should cut taxes? Well, the private sector makes their own choices with their own money. You have private sector investors deploying capital instead of the government and a committee on a government whatever. Obviously, they're going to make better choices. But then you say, well, if the government taxes more and then invests that money well, that'll grow the economy too. And there's these competing arguments. The interesting thing is there's data to support both. If you look at an analysis of the percentage of the economy that the government spends and the growth of the economy, it's like a pyramid, where if you go from zero, where there's no government, up to 25%, it actually helps the economy grow because you need roads, bridges, cops, courts, a constitution, a military. If the warlord's going to come and take your construction business from you next week, are you going to build a construction business? Of course not. And that's where the anarchist end of the continuum falls apart. That's Nigeria. It just doesn't work. It's been proven to not work. There's a collectivist element to humans we just have to accept. We have to have some law that we all agree on that allows for civilization to come forth. Once it hits 25 to 30% of GDP, that effect stops, and that's where you get the most growth in the economy. We were spending between 25 and 30% of GDP in America between the end of World War II and 1970. If you know anything about the economy during that time, it was gangbusters, hotter than shit, white hot fire for a reason, and one of those was that. And then after 30%, as you go past 30%, it slows down growth, which limits long-term revenue and hurts the economy. So 25 to 30% is the ideal. And I believe people should keep their own money. So I say 25%. Boom. Now we just got through that whole thing. We have a concrete data point solution. Now, progressive or flat or regressive taxes. And now, what about a sales tax? What about property taxes? There's the debates to be had, and we've been kept in a system where we argue tax cuts or tax hikes. But if you believed in tax cuts, you'd go to zero, like an anarcho-capitalist. Or if you believe in tax hikes, you'd go to 100, like a communist. And America's, getting pulled in those two directions because those are the conclusions naturally of those philosophies. But the truth is There's a bounded relationship between those two continuums. Because if you taxed at 100 or zero, we know obviously it wouldn't work.
There's problems.
Yeah. So anyways, there's a bunch of things like that can really take our conversation forward that I'm trying to put out there and trying to do this whole damn thing the right way, to put it simply. Because the truth is I'm only 27. I'm a youngin', but I've been sitting here for 27 years, since 1994, and I haven't seen a single damn person do the damn thing the right way. But, to put it loosely, I've been sitting at the line of scrimmage and not a person has said go. And so
the ones that have
been
left off the stage. There have been ones that have emerged from it and wanted to do it the right way. you know. But then some bullcrap story comes out of the backfield, and they harp on this one story, and then boom, they're laughed off the field, you know. I mean, case in point, Ron Paul.
Ross Perot was the closest we've come.
Oh, I love Ross Perot.
But he unfortunately proved to not have as much courage as was required.
Well, you know, with the death threats on his kids, you know, he felt, you know, that he couldn't risk that. I mean, was it real? Was it fake? Who knows? You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
but the question is, like, so his response was, well, my kids and I am too important to keep going.
Yeah.
You have, and that's not doing the damn thing the right way. When it came to that point, if you think you can get into this game and really challenge the system and not ruffle feathers and not have to worry about your freaking back, you are a moron beyond comprehension.
That's a lot of feathers to ruffle, but they're going to happen. And if they're not happening, you're not my guy. It's literally
the biggest birds with the biggest feathers, like
deep wallets.
Yeah, it's literally. I mean, I get to the heart of it. It's big government and big business together that is the problem. It's not one or the other. You know, left and right. Like to think it's one or the other.
You know, he wanted his revolution, and he wanted the flat tax, and he wanted all this. And I loved Ron Paul. I did. I lived in South Texas at the time, and his whole area down there loved him in Lake Jackson. They loved him, and you know, they started bringing up all these stories. I don't know where his son come from, but he's not his daddy. But
the technology was not quite. Ron Paul was a man born out of his time. If he had been born about 30 years later, he would have been right where he needed to be.
Yeah.
But he was the conservative Grandpa Bernie when no one wanted Grandpa Bernie. I love Ron Paul. I've been following him, you know, since probably 2011 or so, going back from the beginning. He was one of the first people I came across. Loved his content, but and I believe like there's technology, and also I try to take lessons from every single person that's done this. So like I'm benefiting from all of this. Ron Paul did not market himself as a moderate, and he did not say, I will moderately intervene to help move the system 5% in the right direction. He's like, we need to fix and cancel all these departments and cut everything and get rid of the income tax. And like, even if you believe in all that stuff, like calm the hell down for 2 seconds. Who's going to listen to you?
Yeah, he went 0 to 60. He didn't eke into it, you know.
And politics is about, and this is why I can do this. We can argue about the ideal, and we can argue about our next step forward, and they're not the same, but they're both important.
Yeah.
And so that's where maybe he went wrong, was not understanding it's about the next step forward, you know.
I think a lot of he was at that age, and everyone in his area knew him and knew how he really felt. And I think he thought that transpired across the globe or across America. It's like, oh, they know who I am. They know where I'm coming from. And no one did.
Yeah.
You know, and again, you know, the technology, it hindered him because he didn't know how to market himself properly. And we're in the society now. If you can't market yourself, then you're just not going to make it.
Yeah.
You know,
there's literally an infinite amount of endless content always being produced.
Always.
You have to somehow make noise or do something, you know. And I'm facing that myself. I've never been a salesman. I've never been a marketer. I've never been a boss. You know, I'm working now hiring an editor. This is the first thing I've ever done, to hire anyone to help me. I've figured out a lot of stuff and edited and, you know, done what I can do. But, you know, it's about always being a student and learning and being flexible, because I don't know how I'm going to find success. You know, I haven't found it yet. The job is not done. So it's always about peeling back that next layer. And you only hope, you know, I'm aiming as high as I can, and whatever good I can do, I will do, you know, before they put me under. And that'll be good enough for me, man. That'll be good enough.
I hear you. That's good.
Well, this has really been wonderful, truly heartwarming, informative, and I loved your perspective. You know, you have a lot of just historical perspective and just a sense of like the late 90s and sort of what you were talking about with all that in particular, that I felt it just added a lot in this conversation. I really got a lot from that in particular. That's coming up to my mind. I don't know how to say it better than that, but other than, and this has been wonderful. We'll definitely do it again. We'll check back in a few months and update, and we'll see what your latest skits are, and see what happens.
Sounds good to me.
You have a wonderful one, brother, and God bless you.
All right, thank you. Now you too. Have a great night. God bless. All right, bye-bye.
Feel like I've been in a new mind state lately, but still in the same route. Always looking for a move, let's get to the money, see what we can bang out.